Matias Wagner is a writer, artist, and critic based in Los Angeles. He's the author of 2,500 Random Things About Me, and The Assassination of Kathy Eckert, and the editor of I'm Very Into You, and the correspondence of Kathy Eckert and Mackenzie Wark. Matias, are you here? Oh, there you are. Okay, great.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hi. I loved reading this. I was very attracted to the religious figures, which it doesn't usually happen to me, but you found very interesting religious leaders. So what Stephan just read from Eugene Fowler, I kind of highlighted, but I also really liked Josette Jackson. So maybe I'll go back to what Aliah where Aliah Rosenthal left off. Because here's the opening question. If God is all good, then why is this God letting these things happen? Those are the tough questions to answer. We don't strive necessarily to answer them. We try to support them into exploring and questioning and coming up with their own conclusions. What I do as a minister is to give them some spiritual principles, invite them to question and into discussion, and let them know that I may believe one way, but it does not. Just because I'm the minister doesn't mean that I have to believe, that they have to believe what I believe. All we ask in our community is people come with an open mind and with questions and not with an agenda of trying to convince anyone else to believe in anything, but to support them in coming to their own about spiritual laws. In teaching the class, we had the discussion. We needed to fit this situation that's in our backyard and put it up against the principle. Like, what is our perspective if we say that there is no one and nothing against Michael Brown? How does that work? How does that fit? How does it make you feel? Is that something you can believe? There was a bunch of discussion around it. That was the first way I introduced that it was through my book group, because it was a book group that was doing it. Then that was my springboard to take it to the community. And I did it in a Sunday service and weaved in what was going on. First of all, we prayed, and we don't take sides. My thing is, if I'm working this philosophy, and that's what I'm doing, I'm working it. I don't say that I work it perfectly, but I'm working this philosophy, if I'm working this philosophy, then I need to test it. I need to test it against real situations. The whole thing is, I take the position that I will remain neutral. I'm not going to take sides. First of all, that's my perspective. I'm neutral. If either of these two sides are not against the other one, what does that mean? I weaved it into my Sunday talk and left people with what is yours to do given. First of all, I can encourage them not to take a perspective that's going on with them. I'm a little lost here. There's one power and one presence in the world. God is good. Therefore, second principle is God is individualized as each one of us. Therefore, we are all connected. We are all one. You can't say that what's happening to them up there and has no effect because you're safe in your house here in South County. Because if we're all connected, that means if one person is hurting, then we all in some way are hurting. Then we all have a sense of responsibility to do what we can so that people aren't, so that we minimize hurting other people, that we do what we can within our realm of influence to help heal. Our position was to do what we could to help heal the situation, and the first thing we go to is prayer, to hold everybody concerned in prayer, knowing that everyone is hurting, including Michael Brown's family, the police officer, the police, his family. Everyone is going to be affected by this, everyone. Even if they're once, twice, 3 places removed. It was to get him to recognize what was theirs to do, and I can't tell them. I can suggest. Now and then I had to do what for myself was personally. What was I going to do other than, okay, I'm bringing it to the community. Okay, I've done that. What I'm going to do personally and how I'm feeling as a Black woman about what's going on, knowing that I have a Black son. Amma asks, how old is your son? Reverend Jackson. He's, let's see, what is this, 2015? He's 35. So I had figured out what I was going to do. I started to learn more, and then I had a friend visit. We started talking about, he's 10 years older than I am. That puts him right into college. Let's see, he's from the South. He's from Alabama. He experienced Jim Crow, all that, which I was too young. I was a little too young. And of course, my parents told us from the South to the North so that we would have to deal with that. In a way, I was sheltered from all that. I heard about my parents had their struggles with not getting jobs and only having to do only certain types of work. But as children, we did not experience that. We went to the public school. We did the things we needed to do, and that was fine. I needed to figure out what I was going to do. And it's like this kind of emphasis on personal responsibility is really lovely. And it's, you know, it's within the framework of a religious leader, but it's also like deeply personal, deeply political, which I really like. I talked with him, and so he has a whole different perspective about it. Like he immediately recognized the racial element where I really had to stop and think about it and look. It triggered memories for him of things that he went through, especially in the South. Some things he even went through when he was in the military. He wanted to go to Ferguson. I said, okay. I said, well, I don't know if that's such a good idea because people were going to Ferguson looking, and I didn't want to be looked at as a looky-loo to go up there and to be looking around and that type of thing. I said, I also have tags on my car. I said, I have out-of-state tags. It's not like we can go up there and be inconspicuous. They're going to think we're coming to look. Amma says, the out-of-staters, the outsiders. And this is a big, like, question in throughout the book, right? Like who has the right to protest? Who has the right to be there? Who has the right to make a comment? Who has the right to get involved? Reverend Jackson. Then there was a lot of talk about protesters coming in from out of state, disturbing things. Things weren't quiet then. You know, I was concerned about whether or not we would get ourselves into the wrong place at the wrong time and damage to the car. And you know, we didn't go, but he wanted to. I think he would have even gone to the demonstration. I felt like I was not equipped. I had no background, no training, and it didn't make sense for me to go there without having some kind of preparation as to what to do if things turn the wrong way, because I've never done any type of demonstrating. So I thought it was best for me to remain here and talk with my community. Even though I tried, there's 3 other Unity churches in the area. I was wondering whether we needed to do something collectively. I was wondering whether I could go and be supportive of other ministries up there closer to the situation, that I have a relationship with the residents, and whether I could support there in some way. What we ended up doing was we had gathered school supplies for a local school. They seemed to be having enough supplies, so we sent our school supplies up there to one of the churches. I never did quite make a connection with another minister. People seem to have been doing their own thing, and it was enough for them to keep up with, as opposed to trying to bring somebody that is new to the city and was not in the area. So that's what we ended up doing. So there's a last part about kind of the real heroes of the situation, and Reverend Jackson gives a really interesting and nuanced answer. But I'm gonna stop here, and there's something that I liked, and it's a lot of it came up in the earlier part that Aliah Rosenthal read, but the kind of question of the insider and the outsider, the forms of like political spirituality and spiritual politics, and it was like kind of odd to me that Josette Jackson like didn't have any experience protesting, but had a lot of political ideas that were related to spirituality. And I'm just wondering for Amma, like how did you find her? Is Amma there? Did we lose Amma?
Oh, sorry, I'm here. Um, Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. How did I find, Josette Jackson, somehow she was connected with Cecilia Nadal. I don't remember how I got to her. And she was definitely outside of the circle of the people who I was talking to. I wish I remembered.
Okay.
But I do remember our conversation, and we were sitting on a porch, and she was retelling the story of how she struggled to come to her own awakening about how she could be politically responsive, and how that was a real journey for her. And that was for me, the real big takeaway. But thank you, Matias, for reading that so wonderfully, and for sharing your thoughts, and for providing to an interview that really grapples with some esoteric questions in regards to protest.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you for being a part of this. The next reader is Akua Lezli Hope. She is a creator, wisdom seeker who uses sound, words, fiber, glass, metal, and wire to create poems, patterns, stories, music, ornaments, wearables, jewelry, sculpture, adornment, and peace whenever possible. She's a third-generation New Yorker, and she is She founded a paratransit nonprofit to provide options for mobility for the mobility challenged in her area. She sings, practices her soprano saxophone. Fast. Everyone give a warm welcome to Akua Lezli Hope.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Thank you. I wanted to say all praises to those who have gone before, who struggled and bled, by whose dreams and visions we are fed. I'm sorry that I cannot name the people on whose land I sit, the First Peoples, but I want to acknowledge that this land was occupied by many before us. I'm struck and stricken that not one but two people read everything I prepared on the Reverend. And so I will just read a little bit of her. And fortunately, I put another piece aside to fill some of my time. Just to reintroduce her to everybody, she says, I'm Reverend Josette Jackson. I'm the senior minister of the Unity Church of Peace. I've been with this community probably 16 to 18 months. I've been in St. Louis that long. I consider my home Denver, Colorado. However, I was born on the East Coast, Pennsylvania. I grew up in Virginia. I live in what's considered South County. I made it a point to go to different areas in the city to experience St. Louis. I work a lot, so I don't get out a lot. I've kind of been in this pocket here that's South County or LeMay in South County. My impressions of St. Louis, it reminds me of a southern city in the Midwest that happens to be located in the Midwest, but it had a lot of the energy and dynamics of a southern city. We're talking about deeper south, like Mississippi. And since the other two sections I had hoped to read were read, I will just conclude with Alma's question. In your opinion, who were the real heroes here in St. Louis regarding Mike Brown's death? Who really stepped up? I don't know. I don't know if I can say because, again, I'm looking from the outside in. If I'm getting most of my information via the media, then then you have people who got the spotlight or whose name was mentioned in a report. If I were to take myself away from media and just think about who I would have considered to be the hero, I would say It would have been the people who were there to make a difference in some way, whether it was to help clean up, help board up businesses so they wouldn't get any further destroyed, or it was to take school supplies and distribute them to the children up there. If it was the people that held the prayer vigils, the peace vigils, that I would say, it wasn't just people in Ferguson. They were throughout the city. I went to one particular one that was, I can't remember where it was housed, but I made that available to my community. I chose her for reasons similar to the others, that the spiritual response is critical, as well as our physical response, our psychological responses, our political responses, the idea of fighting and praying. How does the spiritual service this situation? How does the spiritual point us to continue? She talks about the call for peace, the return to the call for peace, and perhaps peace is a radical act, or perhaps peace is something that we need to set aside. How do we find the strength and how do we continue? In her interview, all of those things are addressed. I wanted to read a poem since I now have time. And this is thank you to our youth in the streets. I'm paraplegic, and getting out in the streets is really a difficult thing for me in this part of the world because there aren't even really good sidewalks. So I felt I had to at least thank those who are willing to be out there. Thank you for taking up the cause, for taking on bright lights and not freezing, for seizing the issue and not flinching and not folding, for moving through our tears and your fears, which must be there, which are there, ever present behind closed eyelids and dreams and even waking moments. You carry them through words you must say. You scrim through that treacle that could embalm, could preserve, could choke even as it feeds. You could stay stuck, and yet you gather and you plan, and yet you clear your throats and call us to listen. How even choked and choking, heart sore and stumbling, you move forward, you coalesce, you make arguments that cleanse, that sear, that burn, obfuscating debris. Clear dross of entrenched rationales of life-taking, of warped permissions, of deranged access. Don't listen to the naysayers. Don't ignore their percussive braying about what's become reasonable. Their platforms boom loud or hollow bleeding. You inherited a world that has made the unthinkable usual. Don't listen to them betting against you. They always bet against you when you say no to what prevails, when your fresh eyes refuse to see the unseeable, foreseen, predictably tragic, decrying the inevitability of senselessness. Don't let their demeaning misnomers distract you, whose lives are on the lines and ransom for profit, whose lives underwrite the very notions that steal them. We grieve for you. We grieve for you. We've forgotten to think twice about it, about the shortest distance, about straight lines. So thank you for giving us back to ourselves, who called for peace years ago, who cried for parity, who marched and moved and were not stuck or tired or worn or weary or silent, who fought for our lives, who sometimes won. Thank you, Amma, for calling us together.
Out of sight, Miss Akua. That was just great. Thank you for that. Next up, we got Jeffrey Cyphers Wright. Jeffrey Cyphers Wright. He's a publisher, critic, eco activist, impresionero, and artist, best known as a new romantic surrealistic poet. He is the author of 17 books of verse. Currently, he publishes Live Mag, a journey of art and poetry. He's a Kathy Acker Award winner for poetry and publishing. All right, Jeff Wright.
Thank you, Amma. Hey, what a great company I'm in here. I was listening to some pretty amazing stuff too. What a project! How historic this will be. Um, I opened the book to this page, and I thought, I don't think anyone else is going to zero in on this guy. I don't think anyone did. Jeff Ordauer, and he was a community organizer. And the reason I chose this passage is because he starts talking about Peabody Coal Company being their corporate headquarters in downtown St. Louis, and how they didn't really pay very much taxes to support the community. And being from West Virginia, I grew up in a culture that really appreciated, more than appreciated, the whole union ethos and people sticking together. And it was a very early memory when my grandfather showed me the bullet holes in the courthouse where they'd shot at him and some officers as they escorted some state witnesses. And the company people were shooting at them. And it reminded me of this thing with taxes. Doug's is right at the very beginning of this thing tonight, when he had that awesome poem about taxes. And then shout out. And then also Don's thing about the shooting into the camps, because another part of my background was the memory of when the company men and the Pinkertons and I'm not sure if it was the National Guard, but they came through on a railroad car and shot into the striking miners' camp and killed about 100 people. And that's where Mother Jones was. And and Stephan's piece too was, the words heroic come up, and I see some of you all are like giants in my mind, and you're working on these issues of people just having dignity. And what does it mean to be a human? Part of what it means, unfortunately, is that we have to be in the struggle together. And in some people's names we remember, like Mother Jones and like Michael Brown. And I'm just going to read a very short piece here. He talks more about community organizing, but this particular piece is more about the taxation, and it's just emblematic of the inequalities and the structural mess that we're in here. And so this is talking about the governor, and he's going, it's very unfortunate. Those are some of the things. In addition to municipal courts, which they've been working on fixing, we were working on a ballot initiative that we're in court on. It's called Take Back St. Louis. The idea was, for example, Peabody Coal, the largest coal company in the world, gets tax breaks. That's $2 million that St. Louis public schools don't get because of Peabody's headquarters downtown. We were trying to take away tax breaks from unsustainable, basically polluters, unsustainable energy providers, and those that profited from that, and force a sustainability plan in the city where, rather than, oh, you're a corporation, you want to come to town, how can we give you free money? How do we develop the 20,000 vacant lots? How do we make a plan for creating sustainable neighborhoods, sustainability, and sustainable jobs, particularly targeting North St. Louis? We gathered the signatures, we qualified the ballot initiative. We're stuck in court right now. And skipping ahead, he ends this one section right here with this line about folks had the analysis, and you always have differing theories of change. And change is what I think Amma is doing when she put this piece together. And it's a great honor to be a part of it. 5-year anniversary. Congratulations.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for really bringing it home and for really approaching the content from your heart, and for choosing Ordau interview. He's such a powerhouse of an organizer. He's moved on. I forget where he's living now. I think out in California. But he really talks about that the fight between the grassroots and the corporate entities and the government, and whose side is the government on. It really raises that question. So thanks for raising that question too. Next up, we got Susan Young. Domestic violence, misogynistic hater, anti-racist, democratic anarchist, ghetto girl, Chinatown, Harlem, East Village, West, homesteading, gentrifier, yuppie squatter, homeless, sheltered, American Asian, world traveler, adventurous, common law, wife, photographer, videographer, martial, fine artist, musician, drummer, artist, scientist, geologist, librarian, mathematician, designer, collector, exhibitionist, buyer, seller, cook, politician, migrant worker, pacifist, activist, life, death, resurrection, life, Susan Young.
Hi. Yeah, that's my hyphenation because that's what we're called as an Asian American. So I was asked to describe my bio. So those are the chapters I had in my whole fucking life. Sorry to say. But 1974, we had in China, I grew up in Chinatown, but I was born in Portland, Oregon. So it's a whole different world than New York City. And so I wound up living in Chinatown at the age of 12 and realizing that a ghetto is a ghetto compared to living out west. So with all that disappointment during Vietnam War, I got my college degree at Hunter College, and then I became an activist with other 50 Asian American artists who did not speak their mother tongue except English. And we go on with that. And we just try and be recognized as artists. But then in order to be an artist, we had to do some other activities as like Confucius Plaza, get more jobs for Asians in the construction business. So I wind up dealing with the logistics of ordering leafleting in an insular community in Chinatown because that's rarely known. But we were able to rally lots of Asians from Eastern Seaboard to get about 10,000 to demonstrate in New York City, you know. So there's a grapevine. But also, I'd like to include the issue about, and so that Confucius Plaza is forgotten, but I had to, after 20 years, get it out of my system. So I started to interview Margaret Chin, who was going for city councilwoman. And it took her 35 years to get it now. And then she turned out to be, I don't know, what do you call it? A sellout for the community. Sorry to say. So by myself, I've been, now I'm in the Gowanus with the Superfund, and I'm participating as a group with called the Watchdogs to make sure that the Superfund in the Gowanus Canal is cleaned up thoroughly, even though the government wants to gentrify it later. So I was just trying to include somebody like Vincent Chin, which is almost the same scenario. Like Mark Brown, where rednecks thought he was Japanese in Detroit, and he was he got killed in Detroit for being mistaken as a Japanese, taking over the employments of the rednecks. And then there's also recent, and so it takes an Asian community to bring that issue out to the public, and the filmmaker managed to do that. And then that's Vincent Chen. And then recently there's Danny Chen, a guy that got killed in Iraq, suicide because he was harassed by rednecks. I mean, the soldiers, for being too weak or bullied. Yeah, actually being bullied by the American soldiers. So anyway, that's why I'm kind of attracted to David Witt for being a cop watcher. So they sent about 400 Prince George's County police to assist Baltimore. And all these are white cops. Keep in mind, this is all a bunch of rednecks nationwide. Every time these cops come in our community, it's all white. That's why I'm all for community policing. And I'll be the first to say that we need people and not those Uncle Toms. Once you take out that hierarchy, that white overlord that's over this black officer, he has to change the way he's reacting because these is your people. We need to have all these officers in our communities from the chief to the captain. If we represent 60% of the population, there's no way 3% is police or black. You got 90% of your police force, 97% of your police force that's white. Ferguson had 3 black officers. It's crazy, but that's a whole other story. And that, I'm saying this because the Asian community is about like 1 point something or 2 point something % of the American population. I'm skipping through this, and like I said, I lost my job with the union back when Obama was elected. And what I was doing, I was cutting grass at a high school. This is another slave job, even though landscaping is an actual skill, but I'm an electrician. I build buildings. I don't need to be manning the land. Okay, and then Amos asks, do you think President Obama had some effect in you losing your job? Absolutely, absolutely. Obama had an effect in all of this stuff. When Trayvon Martin got killed, Obama should have stepped up and did something. Honestly and truthfully, there was not enough done as a black president, seeing what was just happening. This guy just got off of killing a young black man that actually lived in that neighborhood. Then after he killed, he called the police and they told him, we don't need you to follow him. He disobeyed that command and he continued to pursue the young man. After that, that was the green light. You know what I'm saying to white America, that the blacks is back on their plate again. You can kill these blacks, and that's what happened. So I'm skipping over towards the end. And there's this question I'm gonna ask. What's his name? I guess it's the cop that killed the guy. It was, I don't even want to say it because just like the guy that shot Mike Brown, you know, this guy had killed 3 people in Jennings. That was the municipality right next to this. So they were under investigation, and actually he was only on the police force for 2 years over there, and he killed 3 people. When people want to start investigating, we got to look. The police department is corrupt from the core. These politicians are corrupt from the core. That's why I say Obama. It was his fault they gave them the green light. We got a black man. Every time they give black people something, they take something from us. Obama became president. They took out fucking jobs. They took our real jobs, and then they created a bunch of jobs that's not going to stay, some temporary jobs. Don't nobody want no temporary job. That stuff is for the birds. But this is what they did. They take everything from us, and then under the illusion of inclusion, they take everything else from us. They put things either out of reach or we just don't have access to that stuff. And then skipping more, you get some evidence of a cop doing something bad, don't put it on the internet. Just call a lawyer. You call a lawyer, the lawyer will give you the information on what your rights are. They'll tell you what rights you got in court so you can move forward to either being exonerated from charges or bringing charges up on somebody and then suing them to get some money. Well, anyway, so, I mean, my life is still continuing, and I guess I should read the latest thing. I mean, you know, being poets. Pandemic, a blessing or not? For me, it forestalls and eviction practice from a stepfather and a stepson who inherits a building, my new landlord. Can I walk away? The rich are killing the poor pandemically. While watching Miss Marbles on YouTube, a neighbor died today. The hearse drove away with a body on a gurney, covered in a gray blanket. Rest in peace, Joe Mariana. Later, I watch Agatha Christie's Hercule Poirot's Evil Under the Sun. To ward off death, I bake popovers, banana bread, clean the stove, the refrigerator, next, maybe the bathroom. Now we can look at history and reflect back. Its effects on moderation. Pandemic nature destroying human laws for our protection. 2. Can I walk away? The rich are killing the poor pandemically. While assassinations occurring in mercenary white-collar crimes, sad, sad, sad. The poor revolutionizing the rich to end slavery. And while the Chinese in passive America cheers the rich to gain a foothold in government activities. While there's a big split among Asians, the model minority and people like me who have to struggle to gain a job or a piece of bread or prevent eviction from, in a white neighborhood. I mean, I always had landlords trying to evict me, even though I pay my rent. By hook, by crook. So, I don't know, it's this enough information about what goes on in being an Asian American? Or yes or no? I have another piece that I really like. I call it, Oh Snap. Oh Snap, musicians coming out of the woodwork in old venues made new again, once occupied. Oh Snap, they dig the music after 20 years of playing with no audience, now with the Dead Poets Society. Oh Snap, once only musicians occupied this space. Oh Snap, here he is with a new book. Oh snap, he's a writer also. Oh snap, dig his poetry. Oh snap, when will the homeless be homeless? Homes for homeless, homeless homes, homes for sale for more homeless people. Oh snap, I'm annoyed being American born and still foreign to Americans. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Right.
Thank you.
So it was great.
Thank you so much for your time and your readings and your poetry and your responses. This night was really incredible. Thanks to everyone who watched and who's watching. Really appreciate you, and I hope you have a great evening.